It began as a typical evening, where the bustle of everyday life mingled with the quiet of my home. I had just sat down on the couch, my laptop open, a cup of coffee balanced in one hand, and my other scrolling through emails. My shoulders ached from yet another exhausting workday, but I had fallen into a peaceful lull. Then, my phone buzzed with notifications. Nothing unusual, work messages, a few bank alerts. But then, something from my daughter, Claire. A simple message that made my stomach knot. "Dad, you must see it." Claire wasn't the kind to be dramatic over text. If she was sending me something with that tone, urgency, unease, then it was serious. My fingers hovered over the screen before tapping on the attachment. A video. The screen flickered. The muffled sound of voices filled the void. Someone had discreetly filmed this, and when the footage stabilized, my blood ran cold. There they were. My wife, Michelle. Her parents, Gregory and Diane. Her brother, Adrian, sitting around my kitchen table. In my house, the same people who had hugged me last week, congratulated me at dinner, smiled at me like family, and yet here they were, sneering, laughing. Michelle swirled a glass of red wine, her expression one of disdain. Adrian chuckled, holding her hand like they were talking about a stranger. "He's just a useless burden," Gregory spat. "The least he could do is cover the mortgage after everything we've done for him." My breath caught in my throat. I paused the video, my fists clenching. Around my phone, my knuckles turning white. I hit play again. No mistake. They were talking about me. The same man who had spent 4 years secretly covering their mortgage through Titan Investments, my own LLC. They had no idea it was my money keeping their home safe. No idea I had sacrificed vacations, hobbies, even basic comforts, just to make sure they never missed a payment. And this was how they saw me? Michelle had once sobbed in my arms, telling me how her parents would lose everything without financial help. I had believed in family. I had believed helping them was the right thing to do, but now they weren't just ungrateful. They were vile, mocking me, using me. I set my phone down, my mind racing. I had 1,000 thoughts, but one stood out. I was done. No yelling, no confrontation. That would be too easy. I grabbed my phone and texted, "Claire, thank you, don't tell anyone." For the first time in years, things were going to change. I sat in my home office, the only light coming from my laptop screen, $285,400. That's how much I had personally covered for them, almost $300,000 funneled through Titan Investments, so they wouldn't feel like they were living off my charity. Their own contributions? $61,200, just 20%. I inhaled deeply, rubbing my temples. 4 years. 4 years of carrying 80% of their mortgage while they sat in my home, drinking my wine, calling me a useless burden. I glanced at the framed wedding photo of Michelle on my desk. Her ivory gown, her bright smile, a future I had once believed in. I turned the frame face down. Then I picked up my phone, scrolled to a familiar number. Marcus, not just my financial advisor, my lawyer, the man I trusted most. I pressed dial. "Steve," he answered. "What's up?" I leaned back in my chair, voice calm. "I need to discuss the mortgage and the buy clause." Silence. Then a quiet click as Marcus pulled up the documents. I have a feeling this isn't just a routine check. I exhaled slowly. "Titan Investments owns the mortgage, right?" "Correct. Which means if they miss a payment, the house becomes yours. They become tenants on a month-to-month lease." My lips curled into a slow smile. "When's their next payment due?" 2 weeks. Everything fell into place. For the first time in 4 years, I wasn't making the payment. If it bounced, Titan Investments would issue a default notice. 30 days until eviction. I tapped my fingers on the desk. The proceedings had begun. Marcus's voice was firm. "I'll start the paperwork." I hung up. For the first time, I felt light, because in 8 days, they would know what it meant to owe someone everything, and this time, the invitation wouldn't be extended. I grinned as soon as I pressed S, because this wasn't just retaliation, it was justice. The fallout was stunning, and I anticipated feeling angry. I had expected desperation, but I hadn't realized just how desperate they would become in trying to wriggle out of their mess. Adrian, of course, was the first to launch the slander campaign. So, on Monday morning, when I got to work, my helper Julia was waiting at the door of my office, her face tense with worry. "Hey," she said as I entered. "There's something strange going on." I sat down and took a sip of my coffee. She paused, and I heard some men in the break room discussing how someone had been phoning around, asking about me, spreading gossip. It sounded serious. I wasn't shocked. I knew exactly who was behind it. Adrian had attempted blackmail, and when that failed, he turned to predictable character assassination. I was expecting the worst when I opened my laptop and checked my email. Sure enough, there was a message. "Steve, we're awaiting word from HR regarding certain anonymous issues that have been marked as urgent, pertaining to your alleged financial malfeasance, which includes unethical behavior and misappropriation of corporate funds. Although we don't act on unfounded allegations, we would welcome a meeting to address these issues. Please let us know your availability in relation to HR." I shook my head gently and sighed. They truly believed they had me. I reached for my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. Marcus. The call was answered by the second ring. "Concerning the Adrian issue," he said, laughing. "Your boy's been working overtime, phoning everybody who will listen. But nobody's buying it." I grinned broadly. "But let's make sure he doesn't go any further," I said. I hung up the phone, leaned back in my chair, and smirked. By the time I entered HR that afternoon, the meeting had completely fallen apart. Was ready. Sarah, the HR director, greeted me with a courteous but wary expression. "Steve," she nodded. "I'm sure you know why we called this meeting." Latun immediately got to work, opening a file and scanning the complaints. "Apparently someone has charged you with misusing business funds," she said. "And honestly, I'm a little confused about that." I leaned forward slightly. "Interesting, Sarah. Do they have concrete evidence? Or is this all rumor?" Her lips twitched. "No proof has been offered. It's primarily conjecture." I crossed my arms. "I've been working here for 10 years, right? Have I ever given you a reason to believe I'd do something unethical?" She groaned. "No, you haven't. That's why this all appears suspect." "Let's simplify things," I said. "I give you complete authority to audit everything you need. My accounts, my transactions. I'll even allow you to call my bank." Sarah blinked, obviously taken aback. "Hey, I have faith in you," I smiled. "And now, would you like to know who initiated this?" She paused for a moment before nodding. I took out my phone, opened my call log, and slid it across the table. "Several calls from Adrian," I pointed out. Sarah's expression darkened. "Your wife's brother?" I continued. She sighed. "So this is his pathetic attempt to make amends for his personal grudge." She rubbed her temple. "I detest office drama." I smiled. She set her pen down on the desk before nodding at me decisively. "Think about how this is handled, Steve," she said. I stood up and shook her hand. "We won't entertain baseless accusations any further," she assured me. "I'm grateful, Sarah." Before I left the office, I sent a brief text to Marcus. Adrian obviously lost. They dropped it. Let's watch him go downhill. By the time I arrived home that evening, Adrian's downfall was complete. As soon as I walked through the door, my phone rang. I checked the caller ID and smirked. "Adrian," I answered. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "You think you're so clever, don't you?" he sneered. I laughed. "I don't think I know. You destroyed my life, you arrogant jerk." HR called me. "The office wants to review my transactions. Because of you." "Too much, huh?" I said. I might have brought up a few points regarding your dubious business dealings. He went silent, because he knew exactly what I meant. Adrian wasn't just a liar. He was a scammer, and HR had caught the scent. He had tried to destroy me. All he had accomplished was revealing himself. I hung up before he could get the last word. That evening, I sat on the couch, feeling calmer than I had in years. Michelle hadn't been home in 2 days, most likely because legal threats had failed her. I looked at my phone one last time before setting it down. One single text from Michelle. "We need to talk." I took a sip of my drink and typed a reply. "We'll talk," but not in the way she expected. The eviction notice would arrive the following morning. The 30-day deadline was clear. It should have felt like any other day. But for Michelle's family, it would be anything but. Sitting at my kitchen table, I enjoyed a hot cup of coffee. Meanwhile, Michelle, Gregory, Diane, and Adrian were waking up to a harsh reality. They were no longer homeowners. Their illusion had formally expired. I took out my phone and checked my email. Titan Investments had sent their formal confirmation. I forwarded it straight to Gregory, Michelle, and Adrian, adding only a brief note. "This is your last notice. You have 30 days to leave the property." Then I relaxed and waited. It wasn't long. 4:42 a.m. Michelle called. I ignored it. 4:44 a.m. Adrian called. Ignored. 4:46 a.m. Gregory called. Ignored. By 7:50 a.m., my phone was exploding with texts. "What are you doing, you entitled little brat? You think you've won? You have no idea what you're starting." I smirked as I read each message. Then, at 8:02 a.m., loud, angry banging echoed from my front door. Perfect. The showdown had begun.